welcome to Shad Life. Well, I actually tried the 165 SLX cranks on my trainer, but if you remember, I threw a 30 tooth on there, and just starting out, I quickly realized a 30 tooth is too small. I probably, for this game, or using Zwift, right, I should probably put the 32 tooth on. For the trainer, I actually think this combination is going to work great out on the trail because you're rarely going over, your average somewhere around 8 to 12 miles per hour riding regular single track, unless you're doing downhill or something. So running a little bit smaller chain ring with a shorter crank makes sense, but on the trainer, I'm averaging, closer to like 17 miles per hour using the mountain bike and Zwift and my mountain bike on the trainer with my regular cog. So what I decided to do is switch the chain ring over to the 32 on the 165 crank. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'll try to do another video here of me on Zwift with the shorter cranks. Yeah, I think that's correct. So I cleaned this thing up as best as I could, and I'm gonna slap it on there. One thing somebody pointed out to me, let me make sure I'm using the correct one here. This is the old one, yeah, this is the new one. Is that I was using the torque wrench wrong with this device. You're supposed to do it at like a 90-degree angle, not straight on, so I will re-show that. I actually remembered seeing that that's how you're supposed to do it, but I completely forgot when I was actually installing this. This is a big enough, beefy enough part that I don't think it's possible to over torque it, but all right, so we'll go ahead and do this. And I also found another trick. I don't have a vise, but I figured out that I can actually use my stand here, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so this is going to be the proper way to do it. So what I did is I put the crank arm in my bike stand, but I put it so I'm doing torque this way and not the way that the little tilt feature works on the bike, because this tilt feature only has so much power to it. But this way I'm just going against the stand itself, and I can kind of brace it with my hand. So it works really good, actually. There, broke. Okay. That is the more appropriate way to do it. Okay, so I now have this set up the way I think it needs to be for me to play around with the crank lengths. So what my plan here is, well, I'll just show you my setup real quick. So obviously I have my Hey-Do tie on here. Zwift will be up on the screen using my computer here. I've gone over all this in other videos, but I'm just kind of doing a quick review. But what I did, because normally I have my gravel bike on here, which is kind of set up more like a road bike because it has more road gearing on the trainer, which is a much smaller, tighter cassette. This is my 12-speed mountain bike cassette, so I did actually switch the cassette over. That's important because you definitely don't want to be running a super tight road gearing on here. Plus that was 11-speed and this is 12-speed, and this bike's set up for 12-speed. So the coolest thing about a trainer like this is the Wahoo Kicker, is you can change out the cassettes to match what bike you have on the trainer. So that's cool. Leaving flats on for now. Maybe I'll try the same experiment being clipped in, but I figure I ride mountain bike with flats most of the time, so I'm gonna leave flats on the bike. So that's pretty much my setup. So we'll try out the 165 cranks with the 32 tooth chain ring. I'll do, it's called the jungle circuit. It's just like a 3-some mile lap on gravel in the game. And there's a climb part and then a downhill part. We'll see how that goes. Then I'll switch over to 170s, leaving the 32 on there. And then I'll do the same thing on that same course. And I can compare how it feels and everything. I don't know if I'm going to be able to accurately time it enough to where we'll be able to make an assessment there, but I really want to just talk about how it feels, what my cardio is doing and everything like that, even my watts and kind of how that feels, which is why I want to do this on the trainer, because I get all that data using this trainer with Zwift. So, oh, and there's one more thing I forgot to mention. One thing I did notice immediately when I put the 165s on here, I had the 30 tooth, and immediately when I started doing the ride, I was like, oh, this is way too spinny, because I'm riding at like 17-ish, 18-ish miles per hour. And even in my 11 tooth to 30 tooth, I was just kind of spinning out. So now I'm running 32, but the one thing I did notice when I did try that, was that I had to raise my seat quite a bit more. You'd think I only needed to raise my seat like 5 millimeters, but I actually felt like I had to raise it quite a bit more. I normally run it right around there, and I feel like I had to raise it even more than 5 millimeters, and I don't quite know why. I was really just trying to gauge where I like to have my knee bent in the down stroke. So if you go to shorter cranks, you do have to raise your seat. And so then that all of a sudden changes the entire rest of the fit of the bike, at least when you're seated and pedaling. So keep that in mind if you do decide to go to shorter cranks. You're going to have to change the fit of your bike. You might even need to slide the seat forward and back on the rails. I don't know. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. So I have the 170s here, so I will use these and swap, and I'll save this 30 tooth for when I actually go off-roading on real single track. But for Zwift, I'm going to leave the 32 on there. So I'll keep this stuff all set aside for when I do that switch. There we go. And so I will have a video soon comparing the 165s and the 170s on my trainer, and just give kind of some initial assessments of how it feels. And then might be springtime, at least you know, now that it's January, before I actually get out on a trail with it. But I think I can get a pretty good idea of how this is gonna go on the trainer, because Zwift is pretty accurate to real world riding, with the exception of maybe standing. I might find like a steep hill in Zwift and do some standing and climbing with the two different cranksets and see what that's like. But yeah, for the most part, I think Zwift will be a really good tool to use to kind of assess this. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace. So for me, it'll be a take 2 over on the trainer, because the first video I tried to do, I was like, yep, nope, this ain't gonna work.